Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel out there on the internet.com. Today we need to have a conversation. Today we need to discuss the issue of student loan debt cancellation because Joe Biden, in an effort to save the Democrats' midterm prospects, has decided that it would be appropriate to, through the executive branch, forgive between $10,000 and $20,000 of student loan debt outside of law based on some nonsensical justifications, and we need to talk about it. But before we get into this, before we talk about the Biden administration just printing money and flinging it out there like it's not going to cause any problems, we have a sponsor of today's video that's related to inflation. Ooh, coincidence right there. So we're going to toss it over to the sponsor, and then we're going to discuss this issue on the other side. Check this out. Noble Gold, one of the most loyal sponsors to this channel, has just been rated by Consumer Affairs as the #1 company for precious metals IRA in the nation. And this is due to the fact that they have amazing customer service and a great product. Talk to an expert at Noble Gold Investments today if you've been thinking about investing in precious metals. And if you're quick and you set up a qualifying IRA or 401k rollover, you will be gifted a 1/10 ounce American Eagle gold coin. In order to get this amazing offer, call them at 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Again, that is 877-646-5347 or noblegoldinvestments.com. So the issue of student loan cancellation has been something that has been gaining steam in the United States of America for a number of years, and this is despite the fact that all of the data shows us that this type of cancellation, these types of relief efforts, will 100% be a wealth transfer from people that are broke to people who make higher salaries and decided to go to college.
According to the Federal Reserve, the top 10% of Americans by income hold 17.4% of all student loan debt. Despite the $125,000 income cap, research shows the White House plan still slightly favors higher income Americans. Analysis of a $10,000 blanket relief program published Tuesday by the Penn-Wharton budget model found 69.79% of overall debt forgiveness would go to the top 60% of Americans by income.
On top of that, it actually advantages the most irresponsible and the most idiotic people in the United States of America, because you can go to cheaper schools if you are so inclined in order to avoid taking on a mass amount of debt. In fact, outside of probably around 5% of career paths, if you need a college degree in order to get a job, it does not matter at all what university that you should go to. And what we ultimately end up seeing time and time again is that a lot of people who have a lot of student loan debt pick a private university that's out of state, and they end up dorming, and we're all end up paying for their lifestyle, which is a party lifestyle, for 4 to 6 years.
You've probably heard about skyrocketing college tuition. But what you may not know is what many colleges are actually doing with all that money. Pouring it into perks. From upscale eateries to top-of-the-line movie theaters and even water parks. Students living it up in luxury dorms like never before.
In fact, the American university is so absurd and so aware of the fact that a bunch of stupid kids who are not making responsible choices have been granted access to borrow a bunch of money by the federal government that they actually build out ridiculous amenities that you and I would all enjoy, but looking at the price tag, we probably decided not to, like these schools and universities with lazy rivers, and one of which that actually has the biggest water park in the entire state where that university exists.
It's a water park that rivals even those at top resorts. A 25-person hot tub, a wet deck for tanning, a diving well, water slide, all wrapped within a 64-foot lazy river. But this isn't Turks and Caicos, it's Lubbock, Texas. And the 2-acre water park is just one section of the Student Recreation Center at Texas Tech University.
Look at these images. Look at how lavish they are. For those of you who are listening on Spotify and Apple, these are giant water parks, giant pools. These campuses look like playgrounds. And this is what a lot of the people who could have gone to a state school, who could have commuted to school, are actually borrowing money for in the United States of America. But Joe Biden has decided that these people who party for 46 years are deserving of debt forgiveness. That these people need to have some of their debt wiped away because the Democrats' election prospects are looking pretty bad. Biden's approval ratings are looking pretty poor. So he's got to do something in order to juice the poll numbers, bribe people with their own money in order to get them out of debt.
I just heard of a couple friends that go to universities that just have lap pool kind of deals, and it's just cool to tell them about our luxurious river.
With competition for tuition money ramping up, schools now justify the high cost of construction as important for recruiting and keeping students. And at Texas Tech, the $8.4 million water complex is doing its job.
I was like, sweet, a pool.
Enrollment this year is at an all-time high.
I wanted to come here for my major specifically, but when I saw that they had a lazy river, that definitely moved it up on my top priority list.
Now, a lot of you might be thinking, Sean, you're just bitter because you went to a state school. You're just bitter because you commuted. You're just bitter because instead of borrowing money, you actually took semesters off in order to work, in order to pay for your education. And you're mad because you ended up making plans and you ended up making responsible choices. And therefore, all these people who didn't make responsible choices, you feel like they're getting an unfair advantage over you. And in reality, in actuality, I'm actually not that angry about that. Because even though all that is true, even though I made the proper choices, I did what you're supposed to do if you can't afford to go to school. I understood the concept of student loan debt. In fact, at 19 years old, when I went to a university that cost significantly more money than the first university that I went to, in order to do the tour and all of that, the first thing they did was bring me into the financial aid office and offer me $9,000 in credit, and then say that my parent had to borrow that $9,000 in addition to me, making the total $18,000 and having a relative of mine, my parent, my mother, on the hook for this. As soon as I heard that, I got up and walked out of the building because there was no way I was going to hook myself or my mother on a lifetime of debt in order to pay for just one semester at this crummy university. That was the awareness that I had at 19, but I don't expect the dumb idiots who think that there's 497 genders and all this nonsense at age 18, 19 to have that same level of self-awareness, even though you definitely should.
So even with the average tuition nearing $40,000 and student loan debt topping $1.2 trillion, there's no stopping colleges from building amenities once unimaginable on campuses. At the top of the wish list, the luxury dorm room. The inspiration for high-end living began with off-campus housing popular with college students.
And it's just right around this corner, so it's not too far from the elevator. It's perfect.
We asked Tori Ivanovich, a senior at University of Texas, Austin, to give us a tour of the suite she shares with two fellow students.
All right, let's take a look. So this is my kitchen area, and everything is stainless steel and there's granite countertops. I have a dishwasher, and then this is my living room. Everything here was included, all the furniture was, so I had the couch, the table. I just added the pillows and the wall decorations to give it a little bit more of a homey feel. Okay, this is my dorm room here, and it's really nice because it gives me a little sense of privacy. I have my own room, I have my own bathroom, my own closet. And so this is my closet right here. It's really nice to just have a walk-in closet that you can walk into, look at all your shoes, have everything available to you.
Gone are the boomer dorm rooms with bunk beds, cinder block walls, and communal bathrooms. Today, student housing is more likely to resemble Ivanovich's unit at the Callaway House.
On top of that, if you think that I'm not benefiting from this, if you think that I'm not going to come out ahead on this, then you're dead wrong. You see, I actually have a fiance. We're going to get married in somewhere around the next year of our lives, and my fiance has a certain amount of student loan debt. And guess what? According to our calculations, she definitely qualifies for this debt relief. Now, my fiance recently got accepted on a transfer to a prestigious law school where they're covering the majority of her tuition. When she graduates from that law school, she will be able to get a high earning career. I actually do quite well for myself on YouTube.com. So it is pretty sad that us getting married will have a combined income probably likely higher than most people in the United States of America. And yet, we're going to get this relief, even though she, on her own, is fully capable of paying her student loan debt. We're going to get this forgiveness, but really, that's what it's all about. People who didn't go to school, people who didn't make a lot of money, people who are making around $13 an hour, working a job that's absolutely rough, subsidizing people who out-earn them, who are set up for better success in their lives, and obviously didn't make the same level of responsible choices or didn't have to make sacrifices in order to get their education. Now, to be clear, my fiance didn't borrow too much money. My fiance was fully capable of paying off her debt at the current salary level that she was making when she entered college, and yet she is going to get this benefit, she's going to get this perk, and it's going to be on the backs of hardworking people in the country that didn't go to college or didn't borrow money in order to go to college.
The privately owned residence hall may just be the dorm of the future. Similar housing has already been built on campuses from the University of Colorado to Arizona State. 100% of the units here are currently occupied by students, and it's tailored to their needs. At a cost on par with on-campus housing, students get a game room, billiards, ping pong, and free arcade games. Just down the hall is a private theater with a giant projection screen. Upstairs, you'll find a 24,000 square foot fitness center. All this before you even step foot into your room.
Now, there's actually a bit more to this student loan forgiveness, if you can believe it. It actually gets worse. It actually creates even worse incentives going forward. And one of the things that makes the student loan problem significantly worse is that the Biden administration has decided that they're going to adjust the minimum income-based payment requirements for people in the country from 10% of discretionary income to 5% of discretionary income. And I know a lot of you out there might be thinking, you know what, that's great. I only have to pay half of what I was paying earlier on my student loans, A plus first class all the way. But the problem with any of these income-based repayment programs or these income-based minimum payment systems is the fact that 10% of your discretionary income oftentimes is not enough to cover the interest rate on these loans. So even though you're paying month after month, because it's accruing more interest than you're paying off, you ultimately end up in a debt spiral and you'll actually never get out of debt. So cutting the minimum requirement, cutting the minimum payment from 10% of discretionary income, which could be too low for a lot of people, to 5% of discretionary income is actually going to exacerbate the problem, because a lot of people don't think about the costs, and this is something that broke people often do in this country when they're buying cars or anything. They only focus on the payment. So a lot of people are going to say, well, my payment's low, so all good in the hood. But in reality, if you're not paying enough to even cover the interest, then you're not even breaking even, let alone paying significantly less than what the interest is accumulating, which is creating a bigger and bigger debt spiral over time that is going to consistently harm you. This is not a good policy. This is not a good thing. Just because you see payment number go down does not make you better off in your life. Also, there is no justification for this under law. The Biden administration doing this from the executive branch makes no sense, and the legislation that they're using is something related to post 9/11 legislation, which essentially said that they could wipe certain debts if we're in a war scenario. And I got news for you, we're not in a war scenario. This is not how it works, and it is supposed to be a suspension of debt in those emergency scenarios. And the Biden administration is saying that the emergency that actually is justifying the suspension of student loan debt for $10,000 to $20,000 is the COVID-19 pandemic, something that we are largely out of. The real emergency that the Biden administration is doing this for is the fact that his poll numbers aren't looking good. The Democrats are looking to get wiped out in maybe the House and possibly the Senate, although the Senate is more risky. It looks like the House might be more clean for the Republicans. So Joe Biden is like giving you a little teaser saying, hey, look, if you vote Democrat, then maybe we forgive, just $10,000 to $20,000 this time, but next time we might forgive all your debt. Next time we might wipe the slate totally clean, because what we do in this country now is bribe voters with their own money.
For millennials like Ivanovich, who grew up with their own bedrooms, privacy is paramount. She remembers struggling in her freshman year when she had to share a room.
It was a shock to go to a room that I had to share with. It was really different because I just wanted the whole room to be mine and I wanted to put my stuff everywhere.
Even though the people who took out student loans make more money and are often better off than the people who didn't, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. We're just going to give them this relief because, they gotta get a little teaser. You gotta get a little taste, and that way you can vote Democrat and maybe we'll shave off a little bit more of your debt.
Mr. President, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Okay, there you have it, President Biden laying out his case. Let's listen to his answer here.
Do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses that she want these guys to get them all at tax base. Is that fair? What do you think?
What about people who paid their loans, struggled to pay their loans, and now others don't have to?
Now look, that is just one aspect of why this policy is immoral, why this policy is unfair, why this policy benefits people for their ignorance, for their irresponsibility, and actually benefits people who are doing all right in this nation at the expense of people who on average make far less than those who are doing all right in this nation. But there's also the moral hazard, the negative implications of a policy like this. Because once this thing is uncorked, once this situation has happened, then people expect, or people think they're there's precedent for it to happen again. And we've seen this time and time again with government intervention into the university system. There's a great amount of research that shows that every time the federal government releases the amount available to students via the Pell Grant, universities respond to that with a proportional increase in tuition. Every time the federal government cuts the interest rates on student loans going forward, tuition rates ultimately end up going up. Every time the federal government allows students to borrow more money in order to go to university, tuition ends up going up. And this is because the universities are incentivized by all of these government policies not to lower tuition, but to increase it to capture more government money. All of these policies have ultimately ended up backfiring on the federal government, causing the cost of education to go up significantly more, driving more and more people into debt in order to pursue their higher education. But this policy might actually be the worst one out of all of them, because now everybody in the country knows, every student knows, every university knows that if you elect the right person president, then at a stroke of a pen, they can wipe away some of your student loan debt. So while I would have been strong enough in a university situation to sit down, look at the numbers, look at what they were asking me to borrow, and go to a different school, if you're 18, 19 years old and you're in that financial aid office, what they're going to do is say, hey, don't worry about it. There's already precedent for them to wipe away student loan debt. So all you have to do is vote for the right president, and all the money that you borrowed could be discharged going forward. This is going to cause tuition to rise at a rate that we've never seen, and it's already up at around 6 times the rate of inflation. This is an insane moral hazard, and now all these students know that they can just dig themselves into deeper and deeper debt because they don't even need something legislatively to wipe away student loan debt according to Biden's executive order. They just need the right president at the right time to decide, I'm going to wash away some of your student loan debt because my electoral prospects in the midterms aren't looking all too good. This creates what is called a moral hazard, where students are incentivized to borrow money that they have no intention of ever paying back. Universities are incentivized to raise tuition to the point where students borrow more money in order to go to their schools and pocket the difference. And the federal government is basically put in a position where if the conditions are bad enough for the student population in the country for Biden to act now, they're going to be far, far worse years in the future when the debt problem is only exacerbated by this very short-sighted executive action. Now, I know some of you out there are still going to say, look, I want some of the debt discharged, I want some of the rules changed, whatever, but what you need to fundamentally understand is that all that was done was wipe away a certain portion of debt, which puts it in people's heads and creates the incentive for everybody to charge more, and nothing fundamentally was changed with the student loan system. If the federal government stopped guaranteeing student loans, if they made them dischargeable through bankruptcy going forward, then what would you see? You would see people in the private market actually assessing the value and the income earning potential of the majors that they're lending people money to, and then based on that level of risk, they wouldn't be subsidizing these crazy majors that cost way too much money and don't produce any results. You would see downward pressure on the market for college and tuition finally go down. But none of that happened. All they did was incentivize people to borrow more and universities to charge more in order to pocket the difference, because at some point down the line in the future, there's going to be another Democratic president that feels like he's in trouble in the polls, or maybe she feels like she's in trouble in the polls, and at the stroke of the pen, they're going to say, well, we have this post 9/11 War Powers Act that we're going to do in case there's a biological or nuclear attack on this country. Let me just say that this thing down the street is that emergency and wipe away some of your debt. Also, a bunch of progressives are saying that it's racist because black people have more debt, therefore they should get more money, even though black people are more likely to get Pell Grants, and if you actually took Pell Grants out in order to go to school, then you can be forgiven up to $20,000, but if you didn't take Pell Grants out, you can only be forgiven up to $10,000. So all the people who are saying that, oh, black women are more in debt because they borrow more money to go and study stupider majors and thus have worse job prospects, they actually will be forgiven more if they didn't have a lot of money in order to go to university in the first place. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today, and I would love to know what you guys think about this whole situation. Are you excited? Are you going to personally benefit from this policy, or do you understand the moral hazard that's created and how eventually this will lead to more and more people in debt? And if we think student loan debt is a crisis now, just wait a few years when tuition starts jacking up at higher rates than they already are. Let me know down in the comments below. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support support links in the description box of this video. This has been me talking about the Biden administration doing something just to improve electoral prospects. Till next time.